there's no accountability.
I hope things change.
This isn't the first time we was down.
Ecorse is probably the biggest diamond in the rough.
Ecorse is a city that could be absolutely beautiful if people came together and, did what needed to be done to change it.
City of Ecorse is a little place, just under 10,000 people, and just south of Detroit, along the river. It's one of the downriver communities. The primary manufacturing facility in that small city is U.S. Steel, right there on the river. However, they've suffered some really hard times. They've got a very high vacancy rate now in the community. Poverty rates are fairly high, over 20%. Unemployment rates are high. So it's a struggling community. We were told that the city needed a good push to get city residents involved again in civic life, that the people felt that they had been harmed by their own city government and were feeling very much disenfranchised. It probably doesn't help that an emergency financial manager is appointed by the state and they have nothing to do with electing that person, and yet that person is essentially reorganizing the entire city government.
Can I first talk about when I came to the City of Ecorse back in about May of 2010. And after a couple of months, you get an opportunity to talk with residents, with elected officials, with longtime employees. And what I really began to notice is that there was a multifaceted culture that I thought really was anchored by anger, distrust, and an overall negativism that might have actually bridged on kind of a fatalistic approach as to what the city could and couldn't do in the future. So fast forward.
To make sure that they move forward and create the types of communities that they want to move on. So, Joyce Park originally came to me early in 2011 and talked about what we could do with the league to help the City of Ecorse. She's there as the interim manager, but one of the issues with the interim manager law is that after the manager leaves, the city is basically back on its own. Joyce was concerned about creating sustainability within the community so that once they get out of receivership, which is going to be happening in the next year or so, that they'd be ready to take on the new Ecorse, if you will, and they'd have a vision for moving forward and a sustainability within the community to make sure they're not in this position again.
The city had not moved forward in terms of progress and development as a lot of other communities have. And I think a big part of that related to getting residents involved and engaged in government and working as a stakeholder to move the community forward. So one of the concerns that came out of maybe the first year in Ecorse is, how do you sustain a lot of the work that we're putting into the finances of the city and service delivery to make sure that things move forward over time.
So it was, how do you engage citizens in that process?
In that process, get them involved, get them interested, get them to volunteer to help shape the future for the city, and to assist and support government, recognizing that government can't do everything. I mean, we're here to provide services, deal with issues of public safety, the welfare of the community. But when you start talking about community growth and development, it's more of a holistic process where you want to get residents involved.
One of the first things I did when we decided that civic engagement was really the way to go with this was contact Joe Vandermeulen and the folks at LEA. I've worked with LEA and with Joe in the Partnerships for Change program, which is a joint project between the Michigan Township Association and the Michigan Municipal League. And we had gotten a number of communities, cities, villages, townships, counties together over the past several years to work on land use issues and issues around creating community, if you will. This was a little bit of a different game. Ecorse is a different community, and some of the challenges they had were different. than many of the things we worked on in the past, but I was confident that Joe and his team could get down there and really engage the people in this conversation about what they wanted for their community and what ultimately Ecorse could become.
I was first contacted by Dan Gilmartin, who's the executive director of the Michigan Municipal League, about the potential of providing assistance to the City of Ecorse in doing what we call a civic engagement project. He had just met with the emergency financial manager of the City of Ecorse, Joyce Parker, who was appointed by Governor Granholm to take over city finances, essentially bring this city back into compliance and back into fiscal responsibility.
Ecorse has always been a frank community. The people here are friendly, but they also are frank. They will tell you what they like, they will tell you what they don't like. They also have a lot of hopes and dreams tied to Ecorse. This is home for all of us, and we wanted to improve.
We were asked to come up with a project that would help re-engage citizens in Ecorse with city government and with the development of the community itself in the long run. So that's kind of the start of it. We needed to think it through a little bit, spend some time talking with the people in Ecorse. I actually went around and I had coffee in a number of locations and had several breakfasts with people in restaurants, and had a nice long meeting with Ms. Parker and her staff to get to know the place. And then we talked amongst ourselves at LIA, Land Information Access Association, or LIA, and among the staff we talked about how a civic engagement project might get started in a place that was hurting. And we thought that a good way to begin was some fact-finding and some interviews. And since we work a lot with video and video development, we asked our station manager, Joe Carter, to come down and join me on a whirlwind tour of the City of Ecorse and interview lots of people in a couple of days and just talk with people and see if we could get a better feel for how people felt about the community and what the potential was.
But there's some bad places, some good places.
What made you stay?
Because we believe that in Ecorse, you can have a business.
Ecorse, they say Ecorse, and it's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with Ecorse.
Ecorse is a beautiful city.
It's nice. It's a little small, but it's nice. Everybody is like family.
My one thing I believe in is the family structure of Ecorse, whereas that the people come together as one to make it a better community.
Of course, the challenge on this videotape was to come up with something that, as a video, would be encouraging, inspiring, enlivening, charge up people so that they would want to participate in some sort of process. And so Joe Carter and I asked everyone positive questions. What do they love about Ecorse? What's important in Ecorse? Where do they find their connections and things like that?
Ecorse is
Ecorse is probably the biggest diamond in the rough. A lot of rough to carve out, but there is a city with huge potential there. It has a lot of things going for it. Too much attention to the things holding it back. If we can, as a community, get over always complaining about what's not working and focus on what is working, then maybe we could have enough critical mass and momentum to actually get something snowballing.
So we began with a video that helped us learn. It was a fact-finding thing, but on the other hand, I think it's a great little testament of potential and the enthusiasm that was just below the surface there in the City of Ecorse. So with the video in hand, or at least getting pulled together and knowing what the feelings were, that people actually were very friendly. While they were disappointed in their city, they loved their city. They loved the place, and they knew what Ecorse is or was. They recognized a deep, long history in that, and the community's been there very long time. The families have been there for a very long time. Talked about being very close-knit, but very hurt by what the city had done. So we were actually excited about the potential because people did seem ready for some new thing to happen. We said we'd like to see 3 large gatherings. So we'd combine large gathering with small group discussions internally, and then another large gathering discussion, and we'd do 3 of those.
At that first gathering, I can remember being at a table and I thought, it is difficult for a number of these participants to let go and trust again, and to not want to continue to talk about the stories of what's been done to them, what's been done to the city, and why we are where we are with such a deplorable financial condition. By the end of that first meeting, what I began to notice is that people were excited about identifying what we claimed were assets.
Thank you. Table 4, we had very lively discussion and shared some of the same memories of the city as far as the vision for the future. And we feel that the future starts with building the waterfront. We think if you start at the waterfront and build a downtown, it'll bring the families back, the businesses back, and we feel very, very passionate about that. We do need to encourage an entrepreneurship and business in the city, and that will bring the vibrancy back that we have had in the past. Thank you.
Marilyn, thank you very much.
And it occurred to me that they hadn't thought about what Ecorse has, what that inventory looks like of strengths to build upon.
Including the youth and the elderly people to get together. It'll be great if this dream comes true.
We established an advisory committee, and the committee then took on part of the role of inviting people into the process.
One of the things that Joyce and I talked about early on was she was really concerned that there wasn't a sustainability within the community, and there weren't a number of people in the community that were still involved with local government. The community in many respects had given up on the city as far as being a service provider and as far as being a place where people could go to get their needs taken care of.
It was a very good process. It was energizing, and I think it really raised expectations here in the community.
The process was developed following some of the lines of that are familiar in the literature as appreciative inquiry. We used some of the concepts there, and some of our own experience in asset mapping. Community asset mapping is something Leah has been working with for over almost 20 years now, communities all around the state. So with the idea that we would begin with what's right and good and strong, what are the positives, what are the assets of the community.
This is my garden over here. And of course you're a little early, but I have tomatoes and I have collards and string beans and kale and watermelon. All of this will be up really, really high a little later on. Like I said, you're a little early now, you know what I mean? But I fill my freezer.
We then help people go through a discussion about, with those assets, what is the potential? And given that potential, what could we dream the city could become? Given the dream, we could then design responses that would move us toward that dream by developing goals and objectives and setting some tasks in front of us and engaging the whole community.
Do people want to dig in? I think so. I think people are tired and want to change in Ecorse, and the change starts with us.
Organize block clubs, that's what citizens can do. Keep in touch with absentee landlord, and that's one that's major with me, because to me a major part of our problem here in the city are the absent landlords, and if we can start with that, we can make a major difference in the way that our city looks.
I really think people want change. I think they needed this push that the Envision was giving them.
They felt that they could really voice their opinion and get something done. so many times you have a lot of negative, and they figure, well, why comment? We're not going to get anything done. I watched the first meeting and I just saw it blossom. People were just so into it. They really care about the city, and I think these meetings really helped.
By the time we got to the middle of the second meeting, everybody was truly on board.
I really think a lot of people just wanted to be heard.
You didn't have anybody arguing or fussing. They were really interested in putting out good ideas and want to see those ideas come to fruition. They really want to see the city move. And I think thanks to this project, I think that for the first time it will begin to move.
And so I think it really energized the community, and it made people feel like, hey, you know, I can be a part of this. I can make a difference in my own community.
By the second gathering, I noticed that there was a little traction, and now people began to be fully engaged. The other thing that I noticed as soon as I walked in the room is that there was an energy and an excitement and an anticipation that I'm not sure I actually thought was going to happen. People were excited to talk about, where do we go from here? How do we move the city forward? How do we crystallize what we can do with these assets?
There was a lot of excitement that could be built into it with the dinners and the discussions and door prizes. Importantly, we also brought along 12 professional facilitators. We talked with Michigan Association of Planning and asked them to help us find additional facilitators. We here at LEA brought 4, and then we had a couple of assistants from Michigan Municipal League, and then the others were filled in by professional facilitators from Michigan Association of Planning. And so we were able to, in this large setting, 150 people or so, and in fact we saw that many people at these gatherings, we were able to divide up into 12 different groups and have 12 separate facilitators build discussions in these small groupings. The small group discussions gave people an opportunity, first of all, to eat together, get to know each other over a meal. Nothing like sitting down for a meal together with a stranger. Puts us on our best behavior, but also gives us an opportunity to have kind of a convivial setting and get to know what matters to each other. And after the dinner, the facilitators get to work with a flip chart. We had questions that each group each group addressed, and the groups then had someone there writing down all the notes. The people participating around the table were receiving respect, were listening to each other, were recognizing that their thoughts were being recorded and carefully recorded. And then when they were done with their group discussions, we had a large assembly, and each individual group table leader, somebody was elected to stand up and tell the whole group what they learned from that table experience.
In other words, we want our waterfront to be a pleasant environment for the whole family, for everybody to come and have a good time.
This is for the first time we've had someone come in and bring people together on a positive note and help them to feel good about the city. See that it's more than to the city than just negativeness. And they are really now planning to come together as a whole to move the city forward. And we're looking to our elected officials to just continue to read the information that we put out there and to move it forward.
When we were invited to talk to Ms. Parker, one of the things she said was, well, we have an election in November in which the city council, the entire city council and the mayor are up for election. And so we're very concerned that this project, beginning as we did in June, be finished before the election. So it was a very short time frame for us to put this all together, which is one reason why we felt we needed to compress what might have been in some communities a full year process. This had to be in just a few months. And so we did have 3 gatherings in just over 6 weeks, putting these people together in these rooms. So it was a compressed effort, but actually partly the compression was good kept everybody fired up. The energy was good, and I think the reports out from these committees got to the community before the election as planned.
By the third gathering, the word that came to mind was awakening. I felt that there had been an awakening, that these folks, for the first time in years and years, suddenly realized that the future was in their hands, not in an elected official's hands, but in their hands, that they had the ability to actually do something and design a future.
This is starting with a clean slate again, and people are hopeful.
As a result of this project, I really see the city moving forward. I really see a development on the waterfront. I really see our city being revitalized. I really see just these positive thoughts moving ahead.
A lot of it's going to take a lot of effort, but I think people are ready to roll up their sleeves.
I really see Ecorse changing by little steps, baby steps, but it's changing.
I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the Michigan Municipal League, LIAA, the foundations that supported this process. I think Ecorse has been a community at the verge of change, but really never made that connection. And Envision Ecorse allowed that process to begin. And I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to implement the plan and do it in a timely manner. And as a result, you'll see change in this community.
I would just like to thank the citizens and thank the administration for their participation in the process. I think that overall we have come a long way, and we still have a long way to go, but that part will happen.
As important as Envision Ecorse is for the City of Ecorse, I think it's also important for the state of Michigan. One of the reasons why we at the League wanted to get involved with this project wasn't just for Ecorse, which is a long-time member of the organization, but it's also the fact that we've got communities in Michigan that have been struggling. We've got communities that have faced receivership. We may even see some more in the future, and I thought it was important for us as an organization representing cities and villages throughout the state that we sort of get in there and try to figure out what we can do with an Ecorse situation, how we can create some sustainability, and how we can help them map their way through the problems associated with the emergency financial manager, and then look beyond that and try to figure out a way to make sure that they can move forward and create the types of communities that they want as we move on. So Ecorse was very important, but I think finding a blueprint for what we can do in similar type communities throughout Michigan was just as important on that. And that's why the work of LEA is so important.